of campaign, while 2 years goes for governance. We have to cope with this, but that's the big challenge before us. So for me, I believe in democracy because it has remained the best form of government. And that's what brought me into power. But 29 May, 7 years down the line, you realize that I commonly refer to as my people, my people. We want to ask from me, what have I done with the 7 years of office? And what do I intend to do with the remaining 1 year as I bow out? But let it be known to all of you that on the 29th May 2019, I will never be your governor again. I might not be governor again for the rest of history. So I saw a small space in history to fill a gap. I saw a challenge before me to make a difference. This is the passion with which I govern Imo State. I love this state truly from my heart. And I'm willing to give to Imo State my utmost best in all that I do. But 7 years down the line, some of you who are desirous to know how far we have done, especially for the outside world, might be an opportunity for me this day to present the truth in a practical manner so that the misunderstanding and misrepresentation might stop in some quarters. Some of you may recall that 2011, one of the biggest challenges in Imo State was the issue of security. And those of you who are still adults, and I'm sure we are, will agree with me that 2011, at 7 o'clock, no vehicular movement, as people are afraid of kidnappers, people are afraid of armed robbers, people are afraid of many crimes in the society. When we came in, we were faced with that challenge. But I want to say to you all, 7 years down the line today, security situation in Imo State is far, far much better than it has ever been since 2011. And the question you might ask me, how did we do this? Very simple. Our security issues were tackled without so much expenditure. One, we had to demolish all criminal hideouts in the state, especially the Otamini Ngori River area is today a testimony. The behind Catholic Church, the now Zuma Road, is yet another testimony. And what used to happen at the back of IMSU and the demolition of a cuckoo, these were all criminal hideouts, for which it took a political will to demolish those places. We did that, and that reduced to a great deal the issues of insecurity. The involvement of the traditional rulers and setting up community government council also played a very key role. You all agree with me today that for the first time in history in Imo State, the fourth tier of government was created, all to help check insecurity in the land. With the traditional rulers as chairman and head of security in their communities, it helped to expose the criminals within the community. And it became easier for us and the security agencies to tackle those challenges. I remain grateful to my traditional rulers. I remain grateful to the CGC members who have played this role. We also got involved, over 10,000 youths of Imo State, in our community watch program, Imo Security Network program, and Imo's civil guard. All that we have done with over 10,000 youths, all helpful to check crime. May I announce to you today that Imo State is a safe haven for investors. I'm sure most of you may not forget so soon that before the advent of 2011, Ohajegbam and Oguta was no-go area. As many of our children, thousands of our youth, lived in the bush with guns and arms. They can only feed when they kill. And they became a threat and problem and menace to the society. Government upon government could not handle this until we came in. With prayers, with commitment, with all the luring that we did, we had over 2,000 plus youths handing over their AK-47 and gun and ammunition. And that has brought peace in the area. And traditional rulers who were on exile have come back home. This is what we have done in the security section. I hope you all remember that there was no single street light except for Wedra Road and Bank Road and Douglas Road, except when presidents come to this state. You don't have street lights in Imo State. Today, the whole streets of Imo State is adorned with street lights, also helping security. The nightlife that had disappeared in 2011 and before, there was no nightlife. But from 2011, 7 years later, the nightlife in Imo State is from 6 o'clock in the evening to 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, nearby states now come back to Imo State for their leisure. This is telling you that in the security area, this government have done well. And I salute all the security agencies, the Army, the police, the SSS, and all paramilitaries for their collaboration in this regard. But one of the legacies I will leave when eventually I bow out in 2019 will be the issue of free education. One of my greatest joy today as your governor is having removed the pains from those widows and poor people in our society who could not afford to pay for their children's school fees. I recall coming back home from Abuja those days. Already in my mind, I'm expecting how many number of widows and poor people will come to me to ask for their children's school fees. That is no more. And women and poor people can no longer sell goods and sell their wares and place and households to save money to pay for their children's school fees. I think this legacy of free education will live forever in Imo State. When we came in and announced that education will be free from primary to secondary to university, nobody believed us. But for 7 years running, no child in any of our high institutions or secondary school have paid a dime as school fees. So when the World Bank and UNICEF announced that the poverty rate in Imo State has dropped from 54% to 17%, many wonder what was the magic? The magic is simple. The free education have removed pains and poverty in many families. When we came in here in 2011, the total school enrollment stood in primary school and secondary school was 263,000. Today, we have over 800,000 children in both secondary school and primary school. My brothers and sisters, the question I ask you this day, should there have not been any free education, what would have happened to 500,000 plus children? Where would they have been? I'm sure some of them would have been houseboys and housegirls. Some of them would have taken to drugs. And some of them would have become a criminal in the society. So free education works, and it will continue to work in Imo State. We have not left the issue of educational infrastructures. We didn't stop at that. When I came in as a governor, what I inherited from my predecessor was 27 three-number classroom blocks, making a total of 81 classroom blocks, one in each of the local governments. And it's called the new phase. That was all I got. But as it stands today, we have built over 455 schools in all the primary schools of Imo State. And I want you to look at minus 81 classes from over 4,000 classrooms. That will tell you the difference between what this government has done and other governments. For those of you who are within Owerri City, will know that all the schools in Owerri have been rebuilt and taken a new look. I think the best way to describe the success in educational infrastructure is to remind all of you about Owerri Township School, which is now called Owerri City School. That story alone might tell you and give you a picture of the transformation that has taken place in the educational infrastructures. The Emmanuel College is there to speak for itself. Apak Magias, Government College, Government Secondary School, Owerri, Gas Secondary School, Owerri, and Young Scientist College. All these are new schools built by this government within these 7 years in office. I want to remind all of you what our local government used to look like before the advent of 2011. What we know local government for was the grading of roads. And there was nothing else. And buying of transformers that never works. When I came in as a governor, I inherited nothing from the local government. But I'm proud to announce you today that from 2011 to this time, every local government in Imo State have built nothing less than 50 kilometers of rural roads. And some of the local governments that have not seen third roads in their life now have third roads. Onimo is a good example. Ngokpal is another example. Hajagoma is another example. These are perhaps the three most marginalized local governments of Imo State.